So think of what it is like to live in a place where a wrong word can be a death sentence, where you are forced to watch public executions, where at times you need to eat grass to survive. These are some of the harrowing stories of North Korean defectors like Park Yeonmi. She escaped into China and lived to tell the tale. Some have questioned her story, but it is a chilling window into a secret world. Yeonmi, thank you so much for giving us your time. You were born into a relatively privileged family in North Korea. Describe what life was like for you.
Yeah, so I was born into the middle class. My father was a party member. But when you say a middle class or privileged life in North Korea means you are just not dying from starvation. That is the, I think, standard of being privileged. Uh, I remember when I was born in 1993 at the end of the year, that's when few years before the Soviet Union collapsed. So they were stopped helping North Korean regime, and the regime decided to not feeding the people. So, literally every day was survivor. People dying on the streets daily from starvation, and people were disappearing and public execution. But despite that, I still did not know I was, oppressed. I did not even know that I was living in a hermit kingdom. I literally believed, I was brainwashed to believe that I was living in a paradise, socialist paradise, and I had nothing to envy in this world.
That phrase you've used there, nothing to envy, it's repeated a lot in North Korea, isn't it?
Yeah. So as you said, that nothing envy is the title of the song, where North Korean children have to sing every single day, called Nothing to Envy, because we have the greatest leader in the world. How do they do that? It's easy. They block the country. They isolate the country. So North Korean people in this 21st century, they do not even know the existence of internet. We don't have any outside information. People are not free to travel even within a country. So we don't know. I actually never even seen the map of the world. I never knew Africa or like Canada, Australia, even. I only knew few countries in the world. So the regime keeping us ignorant on purpose. So we don't know how the prosperous the outside the world is.
Now, your father was sent to a labour camp. How did life change for you?
So around I was 8 or 9 years old, my father was arrested and sent to labor camp. His crime was literally engaging in a trading. In socialist system, you cannot trade. That's illegal. However, he had to do it to feed us, and that was a crime. He sold medals, clocks, and dried fish. After his arrest, and I became what they call like your blood is tainted. It's a collective guilt. I was guilty too because my father was a criminal. And my sister, who was 11 years old, I was like around 8. We were going to mountains and going to fields, catching grasshoppers and dragonflies, eating flowers and plants to survive.
You talk about being forced to watch executions and how you lived with so much suspicion in the country. To what extent is there a government surveillance of the people?
It was the disappearance of our neighbors was like daily thing. The first thing my mom taught me as a young girl growing up in North Korea was, don't even whisper because the birds and mice could hear me. She told me that the most dangerous weapon that I had in my body was my tongue. If I say one single wrong thing, it wasn't just gonna kill me, my life. It was going to kill the 3 generations of our family's life. The North Korean regime does that. When one person does something wrong, they kill 3 to 8 generations of that family altogether. So I was learned eventually not to even think, not even say what you say, just thought crime was a weird thing growing up in that system. And one of the executions that my mom was forced to see was a young man who had tuberculosis, and he ate a cow, and they executed him. So literally people were treated less valuable than cow. We were being treated less like valuable than any animal.
How did you make that decision to escape?
So it wasn't even like coming to my decision point. I remember right before when I was 13 years old. I was literally starving. I couldn't find anything to eat. Thankfully, I was living on the border town of North Korea, so I was able to see the electricity lights coming from China at night. If you see the satellite photo right now, North Korea is literally the darkest place on earth. So I was thinking if maybe I go where the lights were, I might be fine, like I might able to find something to eat. That's why I crossed that frozen river into China to find food.
Now, once you got out, things didn't necessarily change, did they? In fact, they took an even worse turn.
Yeah. So in 2007, I crossed that frozen river into China. And as soon as we got there, the first thing I was seeing my mom being raped. And these Chinese human traffickers told us that if, in order for us to be surviving in China, we had to be sold. And it's because Chinese Communist Party had a one-child policy. And due to this policy, a lot of girls got aborted. So right now, there are more than 30 million young men in China cannot find wives. So they demand these sexual slaves from North Korea and selling us like pigs. And that's how I was sold for less than $300. And my mother was sold for less than $100 in this 21st century. But the shocking thing is this is still happening right now. When you are speaking, the North Koreans are still being sold in China.
How did you get out?
After 2 years being a slave, I learned that if I go to South Korea, someone told me that I could be free. And the missionaries helped me to escape, which means walking across the frozen Gobi Desert into Mongolia in 2009, minus 4 degrees. We walked across Gobi Desert, and in Mongolia, they helped us to go to South Korea, and that's how I became free eventually.
Look, it is a remarkable story that you tell, but I have to ask you this. Some people have criticised you, you've been called a celebrity defector, and that you have made up or exaggerated these stories. What do you say to those critics?
Yeah, I mean, I'm so glad you're asking that question. So first of all, we can answer this question many ways. If you right now go on the satellites on Google, you can see North Korean concentration camps. And not only the concentration camps, North Korean entire border is sealed. North Korean regime cannot even afford the electricity, but they are putting the electrified fences on the normal border. Not only that, they are burying the landmines. And then putting a machine gun. So no citizen can escape from North Korea. There are right now 33,000 North Korean defectors in South Korea. 33,000 defectors cannot collectively lie about something they have seen. The United Nations in 2014 reported what is happening in North Korea is a modern-day Holocaust. And people doubted Holocaust when it was happening. People say that's not true. How can that be possible? And we are essentially repeating history. If there's North Korea as a paradise and none of this happening, as a journalist, can you go to North Korea and see the normal towns? You cannot. Why is that? Why is the North Korean regime so afraid that they are executing their own citizens from escaping, and nobody can go inside the country? And as a journalist, you cannot never see the truth of North Korean people's lives.
But there have been questions about the detail of your story, about executions, about specific dates, about people being executed for things like watching a foreign film. Is that true? Or have you misremembered or have a hazy memory?
That is really good question. I'm glad you asked that question. So recently, Kim Jong-un declared that wearing a jean and watching South Korean movies gonna send you to life sentence. And also, distributing that is gonna public execution. That was like 2 months of the news that came out, and they made official newspaper law. This is a law that we are going after. So you don't have to listen to me as a journalist. You can just listen to what the North Korean official they are publishing on their newspaper. What is illegal? Literally, giving a Hollywood movie to your friend, which is distribution, is public execution. And watching it gonna get you a lifetime sentence. Wearing a jean is gonna send you to prison camp. So I think the fact is that it's It's not like I'm misremembering all of this. You don't even have to. That is a one part I was so heartbroken about, is that there is a Holocaust happening, and people were saying, I learned English as an adult. I climbed 3 mountains, but people went to satellite photos and then measured the mountain and hill altitude. They say, oh, it's not a mountain, it's a hill, basically. And then I don't know what point do you call a hill or mountain. And I learned English. I said I ate grass because I was translating from Korean to English on dictionary. But what I actually ate was plant, not grass. And then people say you're lying. So the fact that people can be more outrageous about that little detail, then there's actually a dictator on paper, he declaring people gonna send to prison for wearing jeans. How this is not absurd, right? And Kim Jong-un was killing his half-brother with VS nerve agent in the Malaysian airport. And he murdered his own brother in the international airport in the foreign soil. Imagine what he's gonna do to his own people inside the country where there's no camera. This is the brutality of the regime that we are talking about. The fact that we are arguing, is there any even public execution? There are so many videos you can see from the satellites. It's not even I'm talking, there's a public execution happening inside North Korea through satellite video that you can see in the real eye.
Yeonmi, what is the future of North Korea?
I think the regime is never going to open up on their own, because we have tried with North Korea negotiating with them and giving them what they want to. Kim Jong-un's only purpose is staying in power and being a god in this 21st century. The only way to change North Korea is demanding from Chinese Communist Party to stop sponsoring Kim Jong-un. If CCP right now stops sponsor Kim Jong-un, they cannot even survive one week by themselves. The only reason North Korean regime exists is because Chinese Communist Party continuously sponsoring them. And that's what we have the power over. We need to raise this awareness that who is actually accountable for this issue. Yeah, of course, Kim Jong-un is responsible partially, but the main responsibility comes to the Communist Party in China. They are sponsoring Holocaust. And we should talk about this, and we can stop China sponsoring them. The regime gonna collapse, then people decide their own destiny. And that's where I want the people to understand the true root cause of North Korean regime is not the Kim Jong-un. It is China's Communist Party who wants to maintain status quo and keep giving money and resources for Kim Jong-un to survive.
This may seem like a strange question to ask, but are there things that you miss about North Korea?
Of course I miss it. It's not I hated my people. I miss my people. I hate I hate the regime, I hate the system. But the thing is, I miss the land, I miss friends that I grew up with, I miss my teachers, I miss my neighbors. The fact that I spoke out as of this country, 3 generations of my family got punished. I do not know if they got executed or sent to political prison camp. But I still have so many loved ones. After my father passed away, his last wish was, I want to be buried even when I'm dead, to my homeland. And that's, I think, every North Korean's dreaming of. We all want to be buried. Even when we are dead, we want to go home. And that is why I'm fighting, despite the risk of risking my own life, but I also risked all my family's lives for doing what I do.
Park Yeonmi, it's been a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you again for your time.
Thank you.